Are you ready to get casual? Grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and join us for our roundtable TTRPG discussion. Oh yeah, it's time for Casual Friday. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, it is Casual Friday. Welcome to it. We are the Landlocked Warlocks, and you're watching Casual Friday. I am GM Jim Heskett, and over here is...
I'm Brad Wolf with Diarden.
I am Ryan Doyle from the Verdigris Table. What up?
With a little hat tip. Alright, so... Welcome to the show. Let me start us off giving us a little preview of what's going to come up. We're going to talk about some new information about the monster manual that came out from Wizards of the Coast. We got a recap about some undead and monstrosities. We're going to take a look at some specific monster stat blocks, including one that's really, really cool. I'm going to do a show and tell. Then we are going to, probably the bulk of the episode is going to be taken up with a roundtable discussion that I'm calling the group build. I had an idea for a cool location in Fantasy TTRPG, and I don't know what that is. And we're going to build it out live on the show with a sick globe hat.
I felt the need to cover up the country I live in for a while for some reason.
Huh. Okay, I gotcha. Roger that. So we are going to build a location. We're going to throw out plot hooks, NPCs, interesting rooms that could be there, that kind of thing. And chat, you're going to help us do that. Chat, we want you to chime in. And we might stop by Brad's corner, depending on if we have time. It could happen, so stay tuned for that. And, of course, our main topic will be the second chapter of the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. All right, so are we ready to... Oh, also, right after the show, in exactly 88 minutes from now, we are going to be premiering the world premiere, like world at the same time everywhere, all around the world, premiering Sexy Battle Wizards, the one-page one-shot that we played a few months ago, and due to reasons it's releasing now. I think we played like 2 other one-shots since then. It's finally coming out, so these guys watch it. They're not going to remember what happened. It'll be like brand new for them, and it'll be brand new for you, and that's going to be premiering in 88 minutes right after the show, and you should come chat. We're going to hang out and chat, and we'll talk about the show, and you can chat with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come on, it's going to be fun. Hey, what's up, Nacho? Nacho man. So should we talk about the undead?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Right. So in as I prophesied last week, they did release more smaller, shorter videos on the monster manual covering specific monster types. Wizards of the Coast put out videos with Jeremy Crawford and what's his face, the other guy, about undead and monstrosities. And the undead video was a lot meatier. Monstrosities, they didn't have a whole lot to say about it, but the undead video, it seemed like they talked about a lot of variants. They talked about the Vampire Nightbringer, who is a step above a spawn but below a regular one, a regular vampire, and then the Umbral Lord Vampire, who is very high CR. Like they've done that with a bunch of monsters, which is take one, and the reasoning for it that they said in the video made sense. They're like, we want people who are in a tier 1 campaign to be able to fight a Death Knight or fight a vampire. And so they've come up with lower CR versions and higher CR versions of a lot of these creatures. Like the Ghast Gravecaller. They said there's a bridge between ghasts and liches, because it's still stinky, but it has some of the lichy kind of spellcasting stuff. They said that a Gravecaller could be from like a lich's failed attempt to achieve, or a wizard's failed attempt to achieve lichdom. Like they shot for a lich and ended up as this just stinky ghast spellcaster. That's my first couple notes. What do you guys think?
I think the variants are cool. I've definitely done that before on my own, right? Like I've taken not a ghast, I don't think, but I would take the white oftentimes and give it some spellcasting ability to make it like a low level boss monster. So that would be like my low level lich, right? Or I've definitely taken the vampire spawn's abilities and put them on another stat block to make like a vampire mage or a vampire, low level vampire, boss monster. So I like these. I think they're helpful because it's it'll save people time from doing these things that we used to have to do.
Yeah, I'm still holding out a little bit of like, I'll believe it when I see it. But it sounds good. It sounds very good. And I do like the idea of them demonstrating how to make monsters a little more scalable, modular. Like, here's 5 tiers of a vampire that you could throw at different levels. And you can put the lore on the shelf, you can put the name on the shelf, just reskin it and like, yeah, sure, this is the vampire lord, and he happens to be appropriately challenged for your current party level, and no one has to be any wiser for it. So yeah, I like what I see so far. It's also funny to witness that, like, it seems like Undead, we haven't seen all the classes yet, but Undead feels like the favorite child based on their video, not necessarily on like the numbers, but just like how much they were geeking out about, like, and there's even more vampires. It's just cool to see them nerd out about the thing. They you can tell that they still love what they're doing, which is nice. Say what you will about WotC and Hasbro and the corporate structure and whatever, there are a bunch of different people in that basket, and some of them are cool, creative people who are trying to make the best game possible, and that I think shines through in those videos.
Yeah, Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins, Todd Kendrick, you can tell they still love this game, and their heart's still in it. Either that or they're really good actors, which I don't think is the case.
Doesn't strike me as the case.
The one thing I like about having the variants, although it does feel a little bit like cheating saying it's a new monster when it's a variant, but one thing I do like about the variants is that it's easier to give BBEGs or mid-level bosses more thematically appropriate henchmen. Now the Death Knight can be surrounded by Death Knight aspirants, whereas before it was like, why are all these orcs following this Death Knight? Don't worry about it. They just are. He won them over. So you can have more thematically related monsters, like with the Vampire Familiar stat block. You can have these as throngs that will be in service of the vampire, and it makes more sense than having a bunch of goblins or a bunch of kobolds working for a vampire, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's helpful, and maybe something they didn't really consider back when they made the 2014 version is how much your boss monsters needed to have minions because of the action economy, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things, really, if I could name one significant thing that's most broken about challenge rating, it's the fact that the action economy doesn't keep up, right? The fact that if you've got 4 or 5 players and one monster, they're gonna gang up on it, right? So I think that's an important thing that maybe they didn't really realize in the initial design of 5th edition, that monsters, boss monsters needed to have minions. So now creating specific minions for them, I think is an important thing to do.
Yeah, it does feel like they're giving us more context. There's a lot of pages in a lot of monster manuals. It's not just a 2014 thing, but like, whoa, this is cool. What I have to do a lot of work to make this make sense in this situation, in this environment, and it's supposed to be, so many of them do feel kind of monolithic in a way, which is fine for a Tarrasque, right? But like for something relatively intelligent that's in the center of some labyrinthine dungeon, what else is going on in there? Or like, how did this thing stumble in? It always felt very unsatisfying At least to me, that's my style. Like I like things to hold together a little bit more. If you're just, building a wizard, built a funhouse dungeon to kill everybody and protect treasure, okay, cool. You can have some random things. But I do like intelligent species having, okay, here's this guy's boss and here's this guy's underling kind of built in that same section. That feels really good to me.
Yeah, I like Nacho's comment here about the monstrosities. It seemed weird that they weren't able to define monstrosities in the video. They're like, these are the monsters that are just monsters, right? They're not undead. They're not dragons. They're not aberrations from other planets or other worlds, right? They're just monstrous.
Well, they called them the storybook monsters.
Yeah.
They did say that. So back to the undead video, a few more creatures. They discussed the Graveyard Revenant, which was a tower of corpses, which was suitably terrifying. I like that a lot.
Is that the one they called it? A shambling mound of dead bodies, right? Was that when he said that?
I don't know.
Yeah, that works for me.
And the Haunting Revenant, which could be a house or other structure embodied by a spirit seeking revenge. And that art's awesome. We're going to look at that stat block in just a minute, so stay tuned for that. The Swarm of Crawling Claws, more evidence about them, more examples of them saying that they needed to adjust CR so you could have... What the heck is that?
This is a miniature I made of a horde, like a ball of zombies is what I called it.
Oh, dear.
I took a bunch of cheap zombie miniatures and hacked them all up and glued them on top of a big styrofoam ball and painted it up. But this will be perfect for that. What did you just call it?
Shambling mound. They said, I didn't say it. He said it. I think Crawford said it. Shambling mound of dead bodies.
Yeah.
So the Swarm of Crawling Claws, they said the regular claw was way too low CR to be a threat for anything past tier 1. And that seemed to be a lot of their undead intent, was that they were looking at monsters like the Crawling Claw, or the Ghost, or just regular skeletons, and saying, like, these monsters aren't scary at all once you're past 2nd or 3rd level. And so that seemed to be a big concerted effort, like bringing back the Flaming Skeleton from 4E, dispels, it throws fire, does a fire melee attack, and it explodes on death. What do you guys think about all that?
I mean, I want more things that are on fire, straight up.
Yes. The one of the best ways I've seen Crawling Claws used for like high level, which would be perfect now that there's an actual stat block for Crawling Claw Swarm, is my friend, he set it up like a trap. There were these 3 ropes that went up this cliff face, and because story purposes, we had to follow the bad guys up this cliff face, but we didn't see how they went up. So when we got there, we found these ropes, and of course, your first instinct is to grab a rope and start climbing. But the ropes were tied to sacks that were buried in the ground, so they weren't secure enough. So when you put your weight on the rope, it pulled the sack down on top of you, and the sacks were full of crawling claws. So it wasn't a full-on combat encounter. It was using 0 CR creatures as a trap.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't done it a ton, but I like having they're more like atmospheric in my mind. And it's like tapping at the glass of a jar, like, hey, let me out of here. And if you let it out, it's not going to damage you much, but it's going to cause a world of trouble. It's going to go like knock on the door you're listening at, or like whatever. It's just like an evil mage hand running around the level now.
We both tried to click on that at the same time.
Also the puns.
Speaking of terrible jokes, there was something I noted at the end of the vampire video where Todd Kendrick made a terrible vampire joke, and Jeremy Crawford called him an energy vampire.
Todd Collins? Todd Collins? What's his name?
Todd Kendrick.
Todd Kendrick.
Or Kendrick.
No, from What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, Colin Robinson.
Colin Robinson.
Yeah, Colin Robinson. and they always use his full name every time, which is
Mhm.
always funny. Moving on to the monstrosities. Like I already said, they call monstrosities storybook monsters. I've used crawling claws as a hack encounter. Just empty the basket and start the fight. Yeah.
So like trip you up, shove.
Yeah.
It's like all the things like a monster wouldn't do, but like this little thing, it's a hand and it's on your ankle, and that sucks
Yeah.
for you.
It's gonna tie your shoelaces together.
Yes, love it.
You are prone. You trip over your shoelaces.
It pulls your magical boots off. There goes your striding and springing, buddy.
Uh oh. The Kenku is now a monstrosity. Okay. There's a Cockatrice Regent, a larger, higher CR version of the Cockatrice. They said the Tarrasque is the highest CR creature in the book. Was it that way in 2014?
That's a good question.
I don't think it was.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, please. What's big?
Okay.
What's bigger than a Tarrasque? Or badder, I should say. I like the giant Cockatrice King.
I don't know why. But still, that's funny.
But still prefers Velcro.
So while Brad's looking that up, one of the creature they talked about that I think is pretty cool is the primeval owlbear. It's a CR7 tougher version of an owlbear, but the amusing thing is it has a 5-foot fly speed. Because they said they were first going to give it a glide ability so it could jump off of cliffs for some reason. But then they thought it would be funnier if it just had a 5-foot fly speed. Which is not something it would probably use in combat. But I'm a fan of higher CR owlbears. Because otherwise, at higher levels, you just have to throw a bunch of them. And
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea to have higher level versions of certain monsters. And the Pathfinder owlbear does have a gliding ability. So maybe that's why they didn't want to give it a glide and they gave it the 5-foot fly speed.
Pathfinder and Cobalt Press have bigger, better, badder owl bears in the mix. So they're definitely learning from others.
yeah.
Yep. So it looks like the Tarrasque was the only challenge rating 30 monster in the monster manual.
Mhm.
Other challenge rating 30 monsters come from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons and Tyranny of Dragons, which are the aspect of Tiamat and the aspect of Bahamut, the dragon gods. So Tarrasque is as powerful as the dragon gods, or at least the aspects of those gods.
Huh. I hear the Tarrasque got a ranged attack, and it's about damn time.
Yeah, I'm curious what it is. Does it spit? Does it shoot spikes? Like, what is it? What is a Tarrasque rage attack?
I've run a Tarrasque before, and I always just had it grab something and throw it. And just like if there's no, it can grab a structure or dig into the ground, or it can break off a stalagmite. But yeah, give him the little T-Rex arms and 700 hit points, no ranged attack. It did not deserve to be the highest CR creature. I hope they make it hit a lot harder if it's going to be the highest CR creature in the book. There's one other thing about the monstrosity video I noted. At the end of the video, Todd, again, told a story about the spider horse that his wife is obsessed with. And it feels to me like all these people have senioritis. They've all got the giggles, like they've all got vacations lined up for after the monster manual is released, probably. And they've about had it.
He's like, we are definitely not going to include this cute story about my wife, but
I'm gonna tell it anyway.
and they let apparently the editor is also part of that cohort of.
Editor says, screw it. All right, you guys have any other thoughts on the undead or monstrosities they talked about before we dig into specific state blacks?
Yeah, I think they probably, like Nacho was alluding to earlier, they probably recorded like a whole bunch of these videos like back to back to back, day after day. We're seeing them spread out over weeks and months, but I'm guessing they shot all this footage in the matter of a few days, so they by the time they got to the monster manual, they were probably pretty over being on camera talking about this stuff.
Yeah, like there was a series of videos a couple years ago where they were moving offices or redecorating their office or something, and so they have tarps hanging up, and you can hear construction in the background, and it's in like a dozen videos that they released over months. So yeah, they definitely batch record this stuff. Are you guys want to talk about some stat blocks?
I would love to.
Let's talk about some stat blocks. All right. The first one we're going to look at is the Vampire Familiar. This is a new monster that's essentially a vampire variant. We don't have anything to compare it to, really, do we? Vampire Spawn, maybe?
Yeah, because this is intentionally lower level than the Vampire Spawn, right? So the Vampire Spawn, if I remember right, was a CR5. So this guy is supposed to be less powerful than that. And I guess they're not even a true vampire yet. They're just like the humans who are, enthralled by the vampire.
Yeah. But their main benefit down here is this bonus action to dash or disengage. Because with both high strength and high dex and bonus action disengage, they're going to skirmish and smack you with that umbral dagger. These hit pretty hard for CR3. I mean, the damage isn't so great, but just the dash and disengage as a bonus action, very nice.
Yeah, well, and I think you could also use that dash disengage for story purposes as well. Like you're trying to set up the mystery, have these vampire familiars, draining blood from victims and then running off with, vials of people's blood. That would be a a good opening cue that this guy's probably working for a vampire or working for some sort of creature because he's stealing people's blood and running off with it. What kind of monster is he trying to awaken, right? And at challenge rating 3, first or second level characters aren't going to be able to defeat this guy, and he'll be able to just dash away, kind of as a way to preview. Okay, we're up against some sort of supernatural bad guy. Something about blood, just kind of set that plot hook that way.
Creepy baby.
Yeah, there was a Guillermo gif in the group chat.
For sure.
So they keep talking about tables, which anyone who knows me knows I'm a sucker for a good table. But they keep talking about, I don't know if it's it feels like they talk about it like there's a ton of them. And I feel like we're going to get like 7 when the book's in our hands. But a lot of monsters are supposed to have these tables of like ideas of like how they get used or a bunch of different reasons. Like the Harpy shows up and like she's the harbinger of these different things. And I would really like to see something like that for something like this in my mind is an NPC that suddenly stabs you and you are paralyzed and it starts dragging you towards whatever, the haunted mansion on the hill. And you can't do anything. The rest of the party's sitting there like unaware it's happening, though the players know it's happening. Like this feels like a very specific kind of monster, and maybe that's just my mind running with a narrative for it. But like in hand-to-hand combat for CR3, this isn't great unless you got a bunch of them. But this is your quest giver at level 1. You level up a little bit, like, oh, you guys are pretty capable. Whap! Come to the master.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what they said they wanted to do with these like monsters and the art, right? Is they want to be provocative. They want you to start thinking about a narrative when you look at these monsters, when you read these stat blocks. So apparently they succeeded, because that's one of the first things we went to was, how would I use this in my game and what kind of story am I going to tell around this vampire familiar?
Yeah, a couple things I note here. One, it doesn't have that 2 or 3 word tag. None of these stat blocks do. So I'm not going to believe that this tag actually exists until I can see it. They say it exists, but there's no evidence. Follow the truth.
Don't follow that That's going. I don't know where we're going with that, but it's going to be bad quick.
Also, there's a line here that says gear, daggers 10. That's different, right? They haven't talked about. I feel like that's probably old design, and that's would say treasure now.
Yeah.
And tell you the table to roll on. Yeah, just a couple things that are different. This is probably not the final version of the Vampire Familiar.
That's a good point. Yeah, the new one will probably say treasure, daggers plus, whatever magic item chart to roll on.
Although this is useful to know, if I'm running this and they're making dagger attacks from the rafters, they're not going to be able to do it after round 5. That's useful information to know. That might prompt them to run away at round 5 if they're still alive.
Right.
That could be useful information. Moving on, the next stat block we were going to talk about is the Empyrean Iota. And I'll be honest, I didn't look at this one. I didn't have time. Somebody else needs to talk about this.
Let's see.
I like that they're going, okay, this is celestial or fiend. Cool. There's different ways to like integrate it. It feels a little bit like a Holy Ghost. For any of the kids who were subjected to catechism back in the day, it can move through spaces. It's incorporeal. That's cool. It can hit you with necrotic or radiant. It does. Again, it feels like one of these sort of. I like to see them thinking about how this will work out in play. They're clearly looking to like fill gaps in a Dungeon Master's homebrew adventure or whatever, maybe published stuff coming out. The idea that this also has like healing abilities. You throw one of these in the mix, and like it's just sitting in the back concentrating while support. Like I like support monsters too.
Mm-hmm.
So like this thing in some scenarios is making everything else on the battlefield better and keeping them up or bringing them back. Like you want your players to like clutch their pearls, heal a monster. Have them swing a healing potion, and like they go nuts every like they can't do that. It's like what do you mean? Well, of course you do that every time. Why can't they do that?
Yep. Yeah. The I think at challenge rating 1 here, I think this monster has a few uses, right? Because like you said, it can be a support. So if you're doing a high level encounter where they're fighting, 3 or 4 angels, and then there's one of these guys like flying around the background as a support healer, and you got to take this guy out, to be able to defeat the other ones, because otherwise this one's going to just keep healing them, right? You could also use just a bunch of these as minions, right? You have some sort of angelic boss monster or, supernatural boss monster, and these are, they're minions. And basically the fact that it can be celestial or fiend, pretty much it's just generic extraplanar creature, right? You could put it on any plane, and have these, supernatural, angel-like or devil-like, guardians.
Yeah, the inclusion of more monsters with healing abilities will be very interesting running at higher levels, because the players have more healing abilities now. Like just getting all of their hit dice back on a long rest instead of only half. That's twice as many hit dice throughout the day they can spend. Like, that's a big change. So I wonder if including more monsters with more healing abilities balances that, or just makes combat take forever. Because no one will go down if everybody's getting healed.
It's interesting. And healing and healing word is way more effective now.
Right.
Like healing spells do bigger numbers too.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something DMs are going to have to figure out. Like, there's definitely, if you're playing as a DM as determined and thoroughly as your players are playing their characters, you could very much end up just dragging out combat because you have healing abilities on your monsters. But you could also design it similar to what I was just saying before. especially if the healer is only a challenge rating 1, right, and your characters are level 5, the taking out the level 1 healer is just, becomes an objective in the battle. In order to get this battle to end faster, we need to take out that healer, right? So you're not like going to stack a whole bunch of these, but just to give them that other option of how this battle can end, right? It could be end like total attrition. We're just going to fight until we take all of these guys out. Start with the biggest one and work our way down. Or if we take out the healer, maybe that causes the main guy, the boss monster to flee, right? Something like that. So you can kind of think of your combats in like a scenario format, and let the players decide how to approach the scenario.
Yeah, I just had a flash of like 6 or 8 of these guys just like sitting in pews or whatever the hell while you're fighting some, giant angelic aspect. Round 2, round 3, they all stand up and okay, here's 8 healing words. This guy's bloodied. Well, no, he's not. Again, you get it buys you another round of combat, which you're not always looking for. And those beats are big. Instead of like, I'm just going to double the monster's hit points, like do that in the action, and the players freak out.
Yeah, no, that's a cool idea. And then the players have to be like, okay, wizard, you need to drop a fireball in that pew full of these worshippers and take them out, or else we're never going to defeat this big boss. And that adds a strategy to the combat.
And Twin Steel has loud and emotional opinions about healing in 5.5. And then
there was a point where like hitting 0 should proc exhaustion, and now that exhaustion is not absurdly punishing. Like I'm still, I don't have the whole game in my hands, so I'm still running it pretty much rules as written, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be incorporating that pretty soon. Sorry if any of my players are watching this, where you touch 0, there's a consequence to that, because otherwise like yo-yo healing is still very much an unsatisfying narrative and mechanical game aspect to 5, and 5.5 didn't solve that in any way.
Well, regarding Nacho's comment here, both of these guys report no major slowdowns, but you're both still running at low levels, right?
I'm up to 7-8 now, and it's not any. I have experienced-ish players, but like pretty much everyone at my table has been a dungeon master. But I got casters, I got people doing weapon masteries, and I haven't seen it. It's not fast. It's not snappy compared to other systems, but I haven't seen it drag anymore.
Yeah, I'm still at 3rd level with the new rules, so we haven't really gotten into higher level play yet.
Well, let's move on to the next stat block, and this one is pretty exciting. This is the Haunting Revenant, and it's a variant, but it's an interesting variant because it's not just like this monster, but with more or less muscles. This is actually a structurally different kind of variant in that this is a revenant. It comes back. It has a mission of revenge, but it takes the form of a house or a large structure. Or Brad and I were brainstorming some before. We said like Mineshaft, and what was the other one you said, Brad?
We talked about a mansion because it has this ability, this like invitation ability that invites you in. So I was thinking like a big mansion with multiple rooms, and you're getting invited further and further into the mansion as you're fighting this creature. Like you have to make this charisma save to not get stuck deeper into this thing. And that's when Jim suggested the idea to do that same kind of concept with a mine shaft, right? Or even a lake. Like maybe the structure isn't like a man-made structure. It's like an entire lake. So at first, like the boat attacks you and you think the boat is haunted or the boat is a mimic or something like that. But it turns out the entire lake is one of these haunting revenants, and they're trying to invite you down into the water and drown you.
And as we learned last week, it's gargantuan, which means there's no size limit, which no one was sure if we knew that or not, if that was known information. But Gargantuan, it can be as big as you want. It could be a mansion. It could be a island or a lake or whatever.
Not just as the whole dungeon could be the Revenant.
Would be very much like
Killer bed and breakfast.
Wait, guys, time out. Is there a D&B B&B?
I,
Hold on. We might.
I
Change
wrote a
plans.
one shot about a B&B.
D&D B&B is like that's my retirement plan.
It's on the DM's Guild. It's called the Mimic Cafe. You can get it.
Huh.
How about that?
This one was a roller coaster for me because they were like, revenants could maybe even occupy objects, and I was like, man, that's stupid. And then I saw this art, I was like, oh shit, that's awesome. And then, sorry for cursing. And then I was like, this is one of very few monsters that I've seen that are clearly a setting. Like, you're in this house and you might not be alone in this house. Like, this thing has 3 stories, right? So like, this isn't a mini, this is a map. And whenever it feels like it can attack you with +9 to hit with advantage because you're inside of the thing. It's just throwing furniture at you. Anytime you cast a spell in here, make a con save to see if it works, which very, very quickly kind of balances the scales of that martial caster divide that everyone's all up in arms about all the time. I don't need it to come back if you beat this thing. Like, that's just icing on the cake, man. It's dope. And I will say, potentially, you could make this a library? Question mark?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. We could talk about that. Yeah, I really like the idea of players going into a dungeon and not knowing they're being inside a creature, and spells just fail, and then every once in a while the wall goes bloop and smacks them. The wall just like.
What kind of trap is that? Nope, the wall just came alive.
Wall just smacked you in the face for 12.
Anytime.
damage.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. It's like, boom, boom, just double slap.
Yeah, I like that they gave the Revenant's attack here a very nondescript name. It's Object Slam. So it could be you're in a house and they're throwing furniture at you. It could be a swamp and they're throwing bushes at you. Like whatever. Like they're just objects and they're flying at you.
Yeah, they probably would have called that pseudopod. Like a mimic, right? Pseudopod is just, we don't know. It's just a limb that comes out. It's a pseudopod. We don't even know what it is. But yeah, I agree.
You know how a snail has a thing that's a foot, but it's also kind of its stomach? It's one of those.
It's one of those. Anything else to say about the Revenant before we move on to our next stat block?
It's dope. That is Ryan's favorite monster today.
So first we're going to look at the new Cyclops, but here is the old Cyclops stat block. AC 14, hit points 138, challenge 6. Can't, that's poor depth perception, that poor guy. 2 great club attacks, +9, 10 feet reach, 19 bludgeoning, a rock, 30, 120, 28 damage, +9 to hit. That's the old stat block. The new stat block, be comparing it to the Cyclops Sentry. They're the same CR, so theoretically the AC is the same. AC and hit points are the same. Passive perception. This one doesn't have the poor depth perception. It's just got a terrible passive perception.
Yeah, they're surprisingly similar. I was definitely expecting these monsters to be upgraded a bit. I'm surprised we're not seeing higher hit points. What's the damage output difference?
This is an average of 16. This is an average of 19. That's 3d8 plus 6. That's 3d6 plus 6.
Huh.
Wow.
Does the old one only get 1 attack? Because the new one gets 2 attacks.
No, the old one gets 2 great club attacks.
Huh.
+9, 20, 40, 10 plus 6 on the rock. This is 3d10 plus 6 on the rock.
Oh, I think I stopped counting, but I think a few dozen times I heard that everything's hitting harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened? What
Yeah, this
happened?
doesn't look like it's hitting harder, does it?
No.
And they also said that they have touched and tuned up every single stat block, but that sometimes that tune-up is not apparent.
Yeah, so they tuned this up by taking away its poor depth perception and then giving it this limited foresight ability.
Yeah.
I mean, that's roughly +5 to hit if I take away disadvantage. So, okay, I'm going to hit more often.
But only with range attacks, because you could hit fine with that with your
That's
Great
true.
Club before.
Yeah, Twin Steel makes the point that so we've seen over all the stat blocks we've looked at so far, there's not consistent formatting, so which gives us reason to believe that at least some of these are not final.
Yeah. So that's kind of disappointing to see that this one is doing less damage with its attacks, and maybe it's going to hit better at long range, and maybe it can impose disadvantage once to prevent it from taking a hit. But other than that, this one doesn't seem more powerful than the old one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of disappointing.
That is disappointing.
I do like the change to lore here to give it Cyclops some some lore behind it, even though it's extremely brief, but it's interesting. The idea that these Cyclopses are connected in some way to the gods, and their role is this divination role, right? That the Cyclops Oracle is serving some purpose of foretelling the future or monitoring the the timeline or something like that. You could do interesting things with that in the campaign.
Well, here's something interesting. This has a page number on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that seems, and it's laid out, formatted. That seems to suggest that like this is a final version.
Yeah.
There's nothing in here about gear or treasure in either of these stat blocks, but it does have the tag, Monocular Servants of Destiny.
Yeah. So that, and the treasure is up here under that tag, habitat and treasure.
Oh, you're right.
So yeah, so it looks like that stuff is at the top of the entry, not in the individual stat blocks.
Do we only get that on like creature types? I wonder, like maybe not on every single creature.
Yeah, the tag, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or either, because I haven't seen habitat and I haven't seen formatting like this on any other stat block.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. The fact that this is laid out and has a page number makes, and this I think was released as a PDF, not as a slide on Twitter. So
Yeah.
I think this is what the actual monster manual is going to look like, and this is what the stat blocks are going to look like.
Wait, did WotC release this? Are we gonna get in trouble?
Uh-oh.
Is this a leak? We're
No.
not showing the whole page. You can't see the whole page. You can only see part of the page. Nobody narc on us, please.
As far as I know, this PDF was originally released by Dungeon Dad Josiah,
Okay.
and he was given permission to do a video about Cyclopses.
Okay.
So that's where this PDF came from. So he was given approval to release this.
Roger that. So, our overall thoughts on the Cyclopes? A little underwhelming.
I see this kind of like implicit design that's carrying over from 2014, and like it's kind of in earlier editions too, where it's like this monster is less about fighting and more about other stuff. I can see they're kind of implying like you're going to go visit this Cyclops to get some sort of insight about what the gods are up to or where the dungeon location really is or whatever. And when they build monsters like that, it seems that they make them weaker because somehow in the CR mathematics, like the ability to be like it's an oracle, and narratively it makes sense that it doesn't like hit as hard because it's like worried about more like mystical matters. But in practice and play, I think monsters like that should actually be way more durable and way worse to fight. Like if you don't want me to fight this thing, make it suck to fight, not that challenging.
No, that's a good point. And good point for you to say that right as we go into the Gold Dragon, right? Because the Gold Dragon is one that you're typically not going to fight.
So this is the 2014 Gold Dragon State Blerk. 22 AC, 546 hit points, speed 40, 80 fly, swim 40, challenge 24, 3 legendary resistances, multi-attack, bite, claw, tail, frightful presence, breath weapons, fire breath, weakening breath, change shape, DC 24 is pretty high. Change shape, the dragon, magically polymorphs humanoid. Legendary actions, detect, tail attack, wing attack. Those are pretty weak legendary actions. Be honest with you.
Yeah, the new one definitely got better legendary actions.
Well, let's look at that. Oh, this is kind of hard to see.
So it gets a 4th level guiding bolt, it gets a banish ability, and then it gets a pounce where it can move half its speed and then attack with its rend ability.
Yeah, it's interesting they don't have claw, tail, bite. It's all just rend.
Right, so you can describe it however you want with the rend attack, which I'm fine with. I know some people didn't like the fact that they were not spelled out as different types of attacks, but you just had the old one stat block pulled up, right? So that was, I got it here too. They all did about the same amount of damage, right? Bite 21 damage, claw 17 damage, tail 19 damage. Mm-hmm. So it's not that there wasn't a real distinction between those things. So now with rend, they all do what? 19 damage and 9 fire damage. So they actually do a little more damage with the new rend ability.
Yeah, I would probably like to flavor rend as the dragon flies over you and then it lands on you. You have been rended.
Yeah.
Why do more dragons do that?
I mean, attack like a hawk does. Just swoop down and just land claws first on top of you.
Back up, right back up. Squish, squish, just popping PCs.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever watched a hawk swoop down and just obliterate a squirrel, but that's what dragons would do.
Yeah, there are probably impact craters in the snow in my backyard right now of like a little bit of rabbit fur, a couple drops of blood, and just like literally an impact crater.
Yeah, well, and the hawk is not that much bigger than the rabbit, right, or the squirrel. It's just moving at full speed and has really sharp talons. So imagine the dragon is like 6 times your size, and it's swooping in full speed, claws first. Yeah, it's gonna ruin your day.
Yep, big crocodile with wings. Plus, it's smarter than you.
And magic. I like that they gave it banish. Just like, nope.
Yeah. Does it anything about concentration for that? Can't exact again until the start of its next turn. Oh, it could do it every single turn.
It's not.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it's not
legendary
concentrating.
action. It's the legendary action. What do you guys think about the fact that there's 2 different XP values, whether it's in its lair or not? It's the same CR, which that feels weird. Like it should be maybe different CR in its lair.
I get it, and I think it's such a minor point. I think most tables are playing Milestone. I think by the time you're facing off against a CR24 creature, if we're still counting XP, it's a lot of math. A lot of math. I'm of 2 minds, honestly, about the lair action just being like, okay, they get a +1, they get 1 more action, they get 1 more resistance if they're in their lair. It's very clean and simplified, and in a lot of ways that appeals to me, but I do wish we had more like a gold dragon's lair has stalactites and initiative count 20, it can drop a bunch on you, or just like something a little more special.
Especially since they're doing a dragon book this year, right?
Yeah, that's about all
You
they're
would-
doing this year.
You would you would think that that being able to customize dragons, being able to customize the lair and include other abilities and stuff would give them a lot more word count for a book they could write in the future, but they're definitely simplifying it here and saying you just get one more action and resistance, which, I mean, come on, we all tailor legendary actions and resistances the number based on the number of PCs anyway. You know, like I homebrew that
Who told them
100% of the time. I homebrew that because 3 legendary actions is very different against a party of 3 versus a party of 7. It's 2 completely different fights.
And if the legendary action happens at the end of each character's turn, I don't have to track that one thing because I'm already tracking 7 other things.
Yeah.
I do
that's
like, speaking of like simplification too, the change shape, which I don't even see in this stat block in front of me. That's weird. Did I hallucinate that, or is this is only part of the stat block? We can rather I will. No, it's in that at will block. So like in the old stat block, a good 20% of that was it's like polymorph innate ability.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like look how big change shape is. And like I get it. I don't need you can define that once. You don't need to put that for every dragon. And here they hang it on a spell, but they don't have to concentrate on it. And I like that. I like that simplification a lot.
Cleans it up and saves space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall though, I'm just disappointed in the fact that they don't put out as much. I mean, I guess this one does put out more damage than the old one with the better legendary actions, right? Because 4th level guiding bolt is what?
Oh, it's bad.
68, 78?
And then advantage on its next rend.
It's Guiding Bolt's D6. It
Oh,
starts
D6.
off with 4d6 at level 1, I think. Is that right?
I think so. I was thinking of
That would be 10d6.
I have no faith in my ability to recollect any spell now. Like every spell we look up because I'm like, I don't know if I'm remembering the old version. I don't know if it changed. I started to try to like onboard that information, and it's like
I might be confusing that with Scorching Ray too.
I
Anyway,
think
it
I was
doesn't matter.
confusing it with Chromatic Orb is the D8 one, right?
Guiding Bolt's definitely D6 radiant.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm looking at the old one or the new one right now.
It doesn't matter.
4D4. It used to be 4D6 radiant.
We're
I
moving on.
Don't know if it's still the same. Hey, chat, help us out.
Anything else to say about the Gold Dragon before we move on to our next thing?
Overall, I like the more streamlined stat block. This one does put out more damage. I hope more of the monsters are like this, more dynamic and more, and hitting harder. I'm disappointed by that Cyclops that we saw. That's I hope there's not more monsters like that where they actually kind of made them weaker.
Yeah.
I think that points to that like intrinsic idea of, well, this thing is friendly, so it's not as much of a threat to you. And I don't love that.
Like the Kyren and Quaddle, those are two, right? Those are two friendly kind of, quest-giving monsters, and they weren't particularly powerful in the old monster manual.
Yeah, and I love Quaddles because, it's basically it's a dragon, but it ain't a dragon. It's gonna appear as some like weird-looking NPC, and it's got True Sight. It can read your brain. Can't lie to it. I slide those in all the time. But once it's a fight, that's stupid. Like this thing is incredibly powerful and it can't hold its own, and it's like some celestial guardian of antiquity. I want bigger, better, tougher, everything really, but especially like good aligned creatures. Evil will win because good is weak and stupid.
Obviously, everybody knows that. All right, so you guys mind if we pop by Jim's Corner real quick?
Oh, let's do.
'Cause I want to do a show and tell for you. So first, this is not the show and tell, but this is here for reference. This is a just perfectly normal sized dice tray. This is a dice tray that I enjoy running games, but because it's got this outer lid here for dice, and then it's got this inner thing for rolling, although sometimes it is a pain in the butt to pick your dice out of there if they're kind of large dice. But the point is, this is a dice tray that I like to run games with, but it's kind of large. Now, if you find yourself in that situation where you don't have a whole lot of table space, because sometimes you're at the game store and there's 4 tables pushed together and you can sprawl out and do as much as you want. But then sometimes you're playing on someone's grandma's tea table and the dungeon master has like a chair that they're using for their stuff on, and sometimes you're only going to have this much space at the table. And so that's why I got this little guy. This is a dice tray and carrying things from Geek On. If I can find the link, I'll put it under the video somewhere. But here's what I really like about this little guy. So it's got these 2 big foam pads in it. And here's the inside. So you can take both these foam pads out. And it's got felt over here and a kind of foam felt surface. You could roll on either side. This side is definitely meant for it. It's much more felty. But here's what I like about this. So you can carry in here probably, the most I ever put in here was a couple sets, and they fit fine. But if you're wizard, you're going to throw in some extra D6s. You're paladin, you're going to throw in some D8s. You can perfectly fit a couple sets and you're just fine. But then this side over here, what I like about this is when you take this piece out and you put this piece under here, it lays completely flat. So you can keep all your dice over here on the right or left to you, and then roll over here. And this is all it takes up. It's like 2 waffles. So your rolling and your dice storage is just 2 waffles in front of you on the desk. It takes up almost no space because sometimes space is at a premium. So
That's really cool.
It's my little dice tray guy. That was Geek On. If I can find it, I bought it years ago. I don't know if they even sell it, but if I can find a link, I'll throw it in the description below the video.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why you need to sponsor Casual Fridays, because Jim is a fantastic salesperson.
There you go. I have so much D&D paraphernalia. I could do show and tells until the end of time. But speaking of time and things that move along time, right after this show, in 33 minutes from now, we're going to be debuting a 1-page one-shot with all 3 of us, plus a couple of our friends who are there. Sexy Battle Wizards. This is an amazing, grim, dark, noir. We didn't set out to make it grim, dark, noir, but that's what happened. It was still very fun, very grim, very dark. That is coming up in 32 minutes, right on the Landlocked Warlocks channel. Come hang out with us, watch it live. We are going to be chatting in and out, saying hi to everyone. So come do that with us. And also, while you're there, you should subscribe to the Landlocked Warlocks, because our plan for world domination begins with you.
Yeah. Well, and we're not broadcasting this to our individual channels anymore. So This is the one place to see it. That way, we're not messing up our algorithms on our individual channels, and we get everybody in one chat here.
For now, we're trying it out. So moving on, I think it's about time we had some roundtable discussion. Yeah, we've got segment graphics now. If I could only remember to use them for each segment. Excuse me. So there was a situation I was in. I was running a campaign. It was 5e. It was about a year ago. And the party went to a town. And because of reasons, it was kind of late at night. And because of reasons, they really needed to go to a library. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And one of the players said, "Anybody know a 24-hour library around here?" And it just came out of my mouth, an NPC saying, "Oh, sure, there's the 24-hour library down the street. It's run by the undead, so they're staffed 24 hours a day." And then the players were like, "Oh, cool, let's go check that out." And I was like, "Ah, crap!" And so I had to start making up things about this library. In the moment, the players went there, they got a book, they talked to some NPCs, and they left. But I thought it would be really fun if we could brainstorm a similar kind of library. And let me open up docs. Let me open up a new doc here for us too.
Well, as soon as you pitched this idea, it instantly reminded me of the Magic the Gathering setting Ravnica. Are either of you guys familiar with that?
A little bit.
So, one of the guilds in Ravnica is like all the guilds are this like twisted version of what they used to be useful for, right? But one of them, it used to be like the banking clan, and they, so basically they collect your debts. If you're not paid off your debt, by the time you die, they get your body and your soul, and they turn your body into a zombie and use it for manual labor, and then they keep your soul as well, and use your spirit for white collar business work. I always thought that was a fascinating use of undead. So I like that idea of like whoever's running this library is making double use of the bodies and souls of people that are working here. So then the question becomes, how do you get stuck working in the undead library? Is there a plot behind this? That was where my head went.
I love that. I love making necromancy like palatable or appealing. And don't clip that. That sounds terrible, but it's going to be like, you always, like, anytime I can make the players go like, "Oh, yeah, that evil lich has a point. Yeah, why wouldn't we tap this labor force?" Oh, wait a minute.
Well, and it can also be a useful like social commentary if you like putting that into your world. I don't even. I mean, sometimes I try to do that, but sometimes my players just take an NPC they don't like and they just run with it. Like they just identify, okay, this guy's a communist, or okay, this guy's a capitalist, and they just make up this whole bit about why this guy's a bad guy, and use them as a metaphor for whatever is the going problem of our modern disastrous world we're living in. So my players seem to use that as kind of like a catharsis. But yeah, necromancy has a lot of things you could use it as a metaphor for.
So if it's a library, they're not making money.
True.
What's the necromancer's goal?
Well, I will say one of my favorite words is the Athenaeum. So libraries used to be, I mean, like it's like a fake temple to Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom. But an Athenaeum was like a club. All these like books in this like medieval fantasy-esque setting. Like a book is a very valuable thing. It takes a lot of time if you don't have a printing press to create a book. So you have like either a fee at the door, right? You can like rent a day pass, or this is like, again, a guild, right? Not only the people who are running the library, but like the people who have access to this information, some of which presumably creates undead servitors, right? So it could be a challenge to get access to the library in the first place. It's not just like bring me your electrical bill to prove you're a member of this village. So I'll give you a card. It might be a hefty fee, or you can pay like in kind. Maybe you need to contribute somehow to this library. There's always some bookshelf somewhere, some random book. It's got a funny title, and it's worth 100 gold pieces or something. Who wants that? These guys want that, and that's your key through the door. And also, yeah, subconsciously everything becomes a a critique of capitalism if I talk for long enough.
So this necromancer is putting these undead to work there just for overhead reasons. Just to cut overhead.
Well, maybe it's because the undead are controllable, right? Like maybe a lot of these books are dangerous because they house powerful magic. And you wouldn't want your average librarian being tempted to run off with one of these books and become, a sinister warlock, right? So maybe the guy behind all this is a good guy, but he's using undead to run this library because he's trying to protect a bunch of hidden magic that's locked in these books. Or maybe he's the villain and he just wants to keep all the power to himself and doesn't want anybody else to get access to these powerful spell books and ancient lore and all this sort of stuff.
I like the idea of the necromancer being the twist is that he's a good guy. And that the twist is like some of these books are so dangerous that only the undead can handle them. What about that?
Yeah,
Well,
like some of the books actually just drain your life force. Like reading these books will suck your life force dry, and that's why these spell books belong to evil liches and evil warlocks throughout the centuries. And this library, while it serves a purpose, on the lower floors of just like you can come check out a book, do some research from your low level spells, but in the inner sanctum are these like darkly powerful books that have to be protected.
There's this whole Terry Pratchett angle of like you gather enough books and they start to like exert their own force of like magical gravity, and that's one way. In like Discworld you get like pocket dimensions, essentially like these like dimensions that like collapse in on itself and you can get lost in like this infinite labyrinth of the stacks. Speaking of locations within, I like that a lot. And like maybe it's on purpose now, but maybe it was like inadvertent, because like there's different ways to get undead, right? Especially like illiterate, like what was it? The Gravecaller, right? Who I imagine is a guest who can read. That they're chasing forbidden knowledge to extend their lifetime. It's always a human in my mind, right? Like all these other races are going to live for 10 centuries. I got 70 years. I'm not going to finish my project in time. I need to crack death. And I don't know, there's a bunch of people in Silicon Valley doing that right now. So you can see how like you accidentally get there. And then it's like, oh, actually there's some benefit to this.
Yeah. Well, and if that's the case, right, that there's these powerful dark magic books that actually create this like magical force that has to be resisted, maybe the revenant spirit we were talking about earlier is like a vengeance paladin who fought and killed or fought and died facing off one of these evil liches, and now the spirit of that paladin is inhabits the inner sanctum of this library. So the whole inner sanctum of the library is this living revenant, and their vengeful quest is to contain this evil.
And part of that revenant stat block, which I don't know if we even mentioned on that segment, you can't. It's like the Hotel California. You can't leave without some like high level magic. You need like plane shift to get out of there. And you gotta roll a con save to see if you can get it off. So like the idea, it's almost like it could be like a honeypot. You're like trapped in this place until you literally fight your way out of it. Right? What is the okay.
I just couldn't get the name. Do you want to see the stat block?
There's some line in there that's like you can't. It's hard to leave. I think it's maybe the last part of the stat block.
While the revenant has hit points, a swallowed creature can leave the revenant space only by using magic that enables planar travel, such as plane shift spell.
Yeah, so you can't just like misty step if you look out the window. Like, meh, not working.
So what if the inner sanctum is a maze?
Yeah, I like that. Like a labyrinth, and like this twisted living labyrinth. It's a revenant creature containing these powerful books.
Interesting.
Oh, and I have
also-
in my notes here that we need to include the shushy lady from the original Ghostbusters. Must have for me, non-negotiable.
Okay, shushy library lady.
Thank you. I will sleep tonight.
Cool. I'm enjoying this. What are the plot hooks that get our players here? Why would the players come here?
Well, I think so. If we want to make the necromancer secretly a good guy, we have to first make the party think he's a bad guy. So maybe there's something to do with this this necromancer. Well, we'll name him for now. We're gonna name him Bobby Necromancer. Bobby
Here.
Necromancer is maybe his name was on some documents as a lich that the party is aware of, and it seems like that this necromancer is like trying to help this lich gain power. Then the twist would be they find out that actually they're on the documents because Bobby is trying to stop the lich or prevent the lich from gaining access to the library. But maybe there could be clues indicating Bobby's a bad guy at first.
Yeah. And well, maybe there's a quest giver who's actually the real bad guy. The quest giver wants the players to go to the library and get him this book, right? And so the fact that everybody believes the necromancer who runs the library is evil or is a lich, right? Makes the real villain story believable. So he's like, I need you to go in and get this book out of this library. And then once you get in there, you can't leave. And then maybe there's like a plane shift ability, like that allows you to pass the book, that the bad guy wants out of the library to him, or something like that. I'm just kind of spitballing ideas here. But then, so the twist is the guy who sends you on the quest, of course, is the villain. And then you realize that, what you've done is just release this powerful evil into the world. And now you have to figure out how to get out of this library and go right your wrong.
Yeah, we're always worried about the Scooby-Doo ending, right? Like I think it actually says in the old DMG, like don't do that all the time, because like it's the first like move that comes to mind. I like that a lot. The the idea of like the players are going to spend 10-15 minutes like negotiating the reward for the quest and 0 minutes investigating whether or not they should be doing what they're doing. So like the unintended consequences rippling out into like, here's a very simple fetch quest that can actually unleash the tome of terrors, as Angel Biddy's dropping, that is going to fuel the next like tier of play, right? This is like 2 months worth of content. Like if you dummies just left that book in that Revenant, none of this would have happened. And like having them kind of on the hook, it feels bad, so you can definitely overdo it. There's definitely a temptation to overdo it, but having the player characters inadvertently create a mess is one more level of incentive to like have them be involved in like, all right, you got to clean up your room now. You did this, you have to undo it.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, and one way to counterbalance that like Scooby-Doo gotcha kind of thing is to have other plot hooks that get you there as well, right? So you could genuinely have some other plot hooks where like, some other quest giver says, while you're in there, I need you to get this, or hey, I heard you're going to the library. Can you help me out in this way, right? So you can create some other plot hooks that not only send you to the library, but also are actually well-intended, good quest givers. So you feel like you're accomplishing some good things while you're in this library. So you could have, if this library is big enough, like if it's a, multi-level dungeon size kind of thing that we're building, you can have multiple things going on in this library and multiple hooks leading the players there.
Oh, there was I almost forgot. We talked about it in chat. The Ghast janitors. Now a Ghast is a specific 5e monster, so you don't have to use that. But regardless of what you're running, you can just give any undead thing an AOE stink effect. So the idea is that these Ghast janitors are non-violent, but have, I think it's only 5 feet in the actual monster manual, but we're going to give them a 10-foot aura to make it interesting. 10-foot aura of stink, con save, etc. So the idea being that they are just kind of placed like you'd have a random janitor roll when entering a room, and it might have ghasts in there as like moving traps, essentially. You have to go get a book on that side of the room, and there's 4 ghasts to make it tactical.
So you have to try to avoid the stench to get to where you're going.
Yeah, maybe if you kill one, you get your library card revoked, or you get kicked out of the library for the day. Maybe there's like a no killing undead sign when you.
No killing the staff. No using radiant magic. Have a little poster hanging up in the library of all the things you're not supposed to do.
No turn. Keep your voice down and no turning undead. I like books because they are just like built in, easy to grab, just like lore drops and plot hooks. Like insert any quantum piece of information into a campaign. Like a book is a great way to do it. So like, like side questy kind of things for this. Like the person who sells you healing potions needs the recipe for greater healing potions, and that exists in this library. And there's like, there's another on-ramp to all of this. And now you have to either search through it or befriend. We haven't talked to like the head librarian. I don't think Bobby's like the guy behind the help desk, right? Like there's somebody, and maybe it's this, the new guest, the grave caller, who's sitting there and like is very curmudgeonly, but like willing to help you. But you got to, I don't know what exactly. You have to meet his needs before he's going to help you navigate the arcane mysteries of the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah, I think it would be entertaining to have the undead higher ups of the library just take their jobs really seriously.
Oh, for sure.
They're dealing with stuff like the zombie got caught in the stairwell door, had his lower half ripped off. These things that they need to deal with. So they take their jobs very seriously and maybe don't know anything about Bobby. Or maybe, the boss is in whispers, leading to Bobby's evil mystique. They're like, we don't talk about Bruno.
There's like this thing that happens when you set up a good NPC. Like the players are always going to be like, oh, it's the mayor. The mayor did it. So like kind of like the reverse Scooby-Doo of like Bobby Necromancer is like this philanthropist who's founded this library, and like merchants and scholars from around the realm have put this village on the map. 50% of tables are going to be like, that's the bad guy. Right out of the gate. I don't know why. Something about human psychology. So like having like putting Bobby on a pedestal, especially from the staff, like, oh, I've never met him. Never met Bobby. And I'm here 24/7 and I don't sleep or take a lunch break. And I've never met the guy.
Here's a secret when writing mystery novels, it's the third person.
Yeah.
So the first suspect, the main suspect, is obviously not that person. Everyone knows. But then you're going to have someone that you imply subtly is the killer. Because the smart readers will go, obviously it's not that first person, it's the second person. But then it's actually the third person. Because that second person has a reason for why they were behaving the way they did. It's
always the person you most medium suspect.
Most medium suspect.
Writing a satisfying mystery is very challenging because the ending has to be surprising but inevitable. and which is very difficult to pull off.
Yeah. The other thing I'm thinking here is, as far as if you're actually building this for a specific adventure, you could even, because everybody gets subclasses at third level now, you could use that, right? So you start this, at like level 2, you kick in this campaign, these adventure hooks around level 2 after you do your meet and greet adventure, bringing the band together at level 1. And then whatever these characters need to become their subclass is in the library. Right? And for the wizard to become a wizard of, divination, he has to get the book from the library. In order for the fighter to become an eldritch knight, he has to get a book from the library. Be more of a stretch for like the barbarian, druid, and ranger, but you could probably come up with ideas for the different subclasses that would all be hooks. So there's a personal stake in getting into the library and finding what they need to become third level.
Yeah, and
that's good.
That's good. I like that a lot. I love a good okay, we went to sleep and we woke up and we leveled up, and that's all cool, but narratively doesn't feel like a lot. It's like, where's my montage? Where's the progress happening over time? Also, I just had this flash of libraries, at least in the modern sense, are so much more than just a collection of books. They're these community centers. So I can go down to my library and learn how to file my taxes or make fresh pasta. I don't know. There's all sorts of you could do yoga on Thursday. There's all these different classes. So the druid, the barbarian, there's different ways to insert that training montage into, and there's just something so delicious of okay, you have to go to the library to get your subclass unlocked. Oops, sorry, you are stuck in here until you figure out why you're stuck in here. You can't leave.
Yeah, well, or they could just go and get their subclass unlocked, but if they bite on any of these other hooks, right, that's going to get them, into that inner sanctum where, that labyrinth where now they're trapped with the revenant and they're, now they can't get out, and the villain has double crossed them and stolen the powerful book, and now you have, a series of adventures to go past, third level on up to, 5th level or something like that. So this could be a whole 1 through 5 tier adventure.
Yeah, this could be the hub, right? This is not the tavern with the random NPC rumors. It's no, these are books on the shelf, and a whole cadre of NPCs if we want them.
And if they befriend Bobby, he'll let them build their bastions in the bowels underneath the library, where they can build connected bastions, and Bobby allows them to plane shift in and out.
That would be cool. Or towers on top of the library, right? That would be cool. I like that idea.
Interesting.
They are, maybe this is a nerd thing, but we're all nerds here. There are such magical spaces. It does feel like you can walk around a corner and discover anything, or anyone, for good or ill. So yeah, just this idea of it being a magical expanding place. What is the Stygian library is this very cool adventure point crawl thing that was generative, where it's just this is the stacks are infinite. It's just a question of if you want to ever get back out of them. Oh, we don't know what's over there.
Well, do you guys have any other thoughts, or maybe we should wrap this up so we can have a couple minutes break before the next thing?
I am pumped. Is there I think a library is featured in this upcoming actual play, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Maybe Jim knew what he was doing.
Not this library.
But yeah, so if you're watching, I'll clean up these notes, throw them in a PDF, and we'll put up a post on Landlocked Warlocks. But also, you watching this, you right now, in 6 minutes, 6 minutes from now, real time, 6 minutes, we are debuting Sexy Battle Wizards. Come watch it live with us, come chat, and that should be a good time, I think. I think it's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a great time because either it was fun to play, so either it's going to be fun to watch or terrible to watch, and either way, all of us hanging out and commenting on it, like it might be better if it's bad. I don't know.
I think it's
Make fun of ourselves.
I think it's brilliant, and you guys will love it. All right, so that's us. 5 minutes from now, come back right here to Leon Luck Warlocks and watch Sexy Battle Wizards. So let's say goodbye for now. This guy down here is,
I'm Ryan Doyle, and I'm excited for Sexy Battle Wizards.
and this guy is.
And I'm Brad Wolf, and I GM'd the Sexy Battle Wizards. So if it's terrible, it's my fault.
No, it's not. I'm so sorry, Brad. Nothing that happened was your fault.
All right, everyone. We'll see you in a few minutes. Have a good
All right.
weekend. Bye.
Bye.